You know what nobody tells you about being highly intelligent? It does not make life easier. For many people with sharp, searching minds, life is quietly, persistently harder. And almost no one around them ever understands why. Psychology has been studying this for decades. The same cognitive traits that make certain minds exceptional also make everyday living unusually painful. This video explains why intelligent people often struggle more, not less, than those around them. The first reason is that intelligent people feel uncertainty more deeply than others. Most people can make a decision and move forward. The intelligent mind keeps running the calculation long after the moment has passed. That is exhausting to live inside. Neuroscientist Elkanon Goldberg found that higher cognitive ability is directly linked to increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for anticipating consequences. More intelligence often means more mental scenarios, more perceived risk, and less inner quiet. The second reason is that they set standards for themselves that are genuinely impossible to meet. Not because they are arrogant, but because they can see so clearly what excellent looks like. The gap between their vision and their output never closes. Psychologist Paul Hewitt's research on perfectionism found that the most damaging form is self-oriented perfectionism, where you hold yourself to standards others cannot even perceive. This form correlates strongly with chronic dissatisfaction, anxiety, and a persistent sense of falling short. The third reason is overthinking that runs entirely beyond their control. It is not a bad habit they could simply stop. It is the default state of a brain that was built to analyze. Turning it off is not a real option. Research published in the journal Thinking and Reasoning found that individuals with higher fluid intelligence are significantly more prone to rumination, revisiting past decisions, and excessive future simulation. The very machinery that helps them solve problems refuses to stop running between problems. The fourth reason is that intelligent people often struggle to find genuine connection, not because they are cold or difficult, but because real connection requires being fully understood. And being fully understood, when your mind works the way theirs does, is genuinely rare. Psychologist Leda Hollingworth documented this in her long studies of gifted individuals. She found a consistent pattern of social isolation that was not chosen but arrived naturally. The more divergent the mind, the fewer people it finds that can fully meet it. The fifth reason is the chronic experience of being misread. An intelligent person who is quiet gets called arrogant. One who asks many questions gets called difficult. One who needs time to answer gets labeled disengaged. The misreading happens constantly and from every direction. Social psychology research on impression formation shows that people judge cognitive style through the lens of their own experience. Behaviors that feel natural to a thinking mind, such as pausing, questioning, and revising, read as strange or problematic to those who process differently. The sixth reason is that they struggle to find work that actually satisfies them. Most available jobs ask for a narrow slice of what they are capable of. They can do the work easily, but doing easy work for too long becomes its own kind of suffering. Psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow states found that boredom is not simply unpleasant. It is cognitively damaging over time. A brain that is consistently underused does not coast comfortably. It turns its energy inward, and that rarely ends well. Now consider this for a moment. Think of the most capable person you know personally. Really think about them. Do they look at ease? Or do they carry something quietly? Something that never quite gets resolved, no matter how much they accomplish? The seventh reason is that intelligent people carry the weight of awareness that most people are protected from. They see systems clearly. They understand consequences before they arrive. They cannot unknow what they know. And awareness, without the power to act, becomes a specific kind of grief. Philosopher and psychologist William James described this as the curse of the reflective mind. To see clearly is not always to feel better. Sometimes it is to feel the full weight of a situation that most people around you have not yet noticed and may never notice. The eighth reason is that they tend to feel emotions at a greater intensity than they can comfortably manage. This surprises people who assume intelligence and emotional depth pull in opposite directions. In reality, for many, they run in exactly the same direction. Psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski called this psychic overexcitability. He found that individuals of higher intelligence experience emotional responses with greater frequency and greater depth. Joy feels bigger. Loss feels heavier. Disappointment does not pass in an afternoon. It settles and stays. The ninth reason is that they are rarely able to let ideas go. A thought arrives and refuses to leave until it has been fully examined from every possible angle. This makes them exceptional thinkers. It also makes ordinary rest deeply difficult to achieve. Sleep research from the University of Westminster found that individuals who score higher on measures of analytical thinking take significantly longer to disengage their cognitive processes at night. The brain that thinks well also thinks late, and the cost of that accumulates invisibly over time. The 10th reason is one of the most privately painful. Intelligent people often feel like they are watching life from slightly outside of it, present in the room, but somehow also observing the room at the same time, participating and analyzing simultaneously. This dual awareness, being inside an experience while also watching yourself have it, is what psychologists call meta-awareness. It allows for extraordinary self-reflection, but it also creates a persistent distance from the kind of full, unself-conscious immersion that most people call happiness. The 11th reason is the burden of knowing what could be different. When you understand systems and causes clearly, you also understand, very specifically, what it would take to improve them. And then you live in the gap between that knowledge and your actual capacity to change things. Sociologist C. Wright Mills described this as the sociological imagination, the ability to see personal troubles as connected to larger structural patterns. It is a profound intellectual gift. It is also a painful one, because once you see the connections, you cannot stop seeing them. The 12th reason is decision fatigue at a level others do not experience. Every decision, no matter how small, gets processed through multiple layers of analysis. What should be a simple choice becomes a multivariable problem, and all of that mental effort adds up invisibly. Research on cognitive depletion from Roy Baumeister's laboratory found that the quality of decision-making declines sharply as mental resources become exhausted. The brain that deliberates more uses those resources faster. By midday, some intelligent people are already making choices on an emptier tank than they realize. Now consider this for a moment. Every reason discussed here is not a flaw. It is the other side of something that looks like a gift from the outside. The same depth that makes these minds remarkable is the exact source of their private exhaustion. The 13th reason is that they tend to be acutely aware of their own contradictions. They value honesty, but sometimes withhold the truth. They crave connection, but often withdraw. They want certainty, but know too well that certainty is mostly an illusion. Living with that awareness is tiring. Psychologist Carl Rogers wrote extensively about the gap between the ideal self, who we believe we should be, and the real self, who we actually are in any given moment. He found this gap to be a primary source of psychological distress. For intelligent people, that gap is often enormous and in very high resolution. The 14th reason is that they often cannot share what they are actually thinking. The full thought, honest and unfiltered, is too complicated, too layered, or too far outside the comfortable range of the conversation. So they translate it into something simpler and something essential always gets lost. That constant translation is its own kind of loneliness. Not the loneliness of being alone in a room, but of being alone inside every conversation you participate in, of always speaking the edited version of yourself, and wondering what would happen if you did not. The 15th reason, and perhaps the one that sits most quietly at the center of all the others, is that intelligent people often struggle to be kind to themselves. They extend enormous patience and understanding toward others. They rarely extend it inward. Research on self-compassion from psychologist Kristen Neff found that the very habits of mind that support careful thinking, critical analysis, self-monitoring, and high standards are the same habits that make self-compassion unusually difficult to practice. The inner critic and the sharp mind share the same voice. Think back to where we began. The idea that intelligence makes life easier, that it opens doors and smooths paths and puts you ahead. That is true in some external, measurable ways. But inside the mind where all of this actually lives, the picture is far more complicated. The intelligent person who is struggling is not struggling despite their mind. They are often struggling because of it, because of how fully they feel, how clearly they see, how relentlessly they think, and how rarely the world around them is built to hold all of that comfortably. If you recognize yourself in what has been described here, there is something important to name directly. The struggle is not evidence that something has gone wrong with you. It is evidence that something is working, and working at a level that requires more care and more support than most people think to offer. You deserve environments that can actually hold your mind, relationships where the full thought is welcome, work that asks something real of you, rest that is protected and not treated as laziness, and the quiet, ongoing practice of being as generous with yourself as you are with everyone else. The world tends to celebrate intelligence from a comfortable distance. It applauds the output without wondering much about the cost, without asking what it actually takes day after day to live inside a mind that never fully stops and never fully settles. But psychology has been asking that question, and the answers point in a consistent direction. The minds that carry the most are often the ones who receive the least acknowledgement that they are carrying anything at all. That needs to change, starting with how you speak to yourself. Intelligence is not a finished condition. It is a way of moving through the world that comes with particular demands. Meeting those demands honestly, without either glorifying the struggle or pretending it is not there, is one of the quieter and more courageous things a person can do. The question worth ending on is not whether intelligent people struggle. They do. The research is clear and the experience is real. The question is whether the struggle is being met with understanding, or whether it is simply being endured in silence the way it so often has been. A mind that sees everything clearly still needs someone to see it. That is not a weakness. That is the most ordinary and human need there is. And intelligent or not, none of us are fully exempt from needing to be genuinely known. The struggle of the intelligent mind is not a paradox to solve. It is a reality to understand, to honor, and eventually to meet with the same depth and patience that mind brings to everything else it has ever chosen to turn its attention toward.